Hello and welcome to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast live. I'm your host, Dr. Benjamin Alter.
And I'm your co-host, Dr. Susanna Alter.
And this is your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. And we're excited to dive into something that we talk about a lot with our clients and our patients and our friends and our family and ourselves and each other. And something that we don't talk that much about on the podcast, and that's the topic of relationships. It's one of those things that, we all conceptually very well understand the importance of the health and peace in our relationships as it concerns our physical health, our mental health, our holistic experience of health. But I don't know how many people out there really have real world strategy and understanding of how to actually increase peace in challenging relationships. So we're going to do our best to fully address this topic today.
Yes, and this was the topic voted by all of the members from our private Facebook group, but it's open to anyone who wants to join. So we welcome you to join us over on Facebook. We renamed the group to the Plant-Based and Stress-Free Community.
This is our third rename. We're trying out different things to see what really clicks and feels good for ourselves and the group. And plant-based and stress-free are kind of the two pieces of the pie that we find most significant and important when we're talking about health and healing.
Exactly. And so I love that our community members chose this topic because I find it very timely because we are in the middle of the holidays. This is typically the time of year where we go home and spend time with our families. And maybe some of you out there have some relationships within your family that you're feeling a little bit nervous about because typically things in the past haven't really gone so smoothly with them. And so this episode is really, the purpose of it is to really help you see things from a different angle to really, like we said, increase the peace in those challenging relationships.
Yeah, and as we come to this time of year, one quote that maybe you've heard before that always comes to my mind from Ram Dass is if you think you're enlightened, then go home for the holidays. And I have felt this personally so very often. Well, I guess to be precise, at least once a year. At least once a year, I've felt this, the reality of this quote. I feel really good, solid, peaceful. I wouldn't go so far as to say enlightened, but I feel good. And then at some point, I feel triggered by family members. They and then another thing that is said is, family members are really able to trigger you the most because they kind of installed the triggering buttons. So they know exactly where they are and they push them without even knowing or without even intending. And we are sensitive to these sort of things. So I think the first message is just to have that level of awareness and understanding, kind of the spiritual context of these sacred relationships with family, and also the opportunities that do lie in these relationships, and also to take it easy on ourselves and not think that we need to be enlightened on any given Christmas or Thanksgiving or Hanukkah or holiday family celebration.
Exactly. So true. Be easy on yourself.
Yeah. But that being said, being easy on yourself is a good place to start. But where do we go from there?
Mm-hmm. Great question. Well, I think a great place to start is by reminding everyone of the inside out perspective of life, because this is so helpful when we're really wanting to shift the energy in a relationship.
Yeah, and maybe before we go any further, I just invite listeners who are tuning in to consider where you're at with regard to the health of your kind of mindset, and also the health of your relationships, and those relationships maybe that you intend to shift or to change. And just consider that, what you've been doing up until now has worked to some degree, various levels of, who knows, maybe it's working really well, or maybe you're looking for some new insights to shift your relationship. So I am inviting you to just consider that there is an alternative way of looking at your life, at looking through your life into reality. And I invite you to consider shifting our perspective, if at least just for the duration of this episode, and see how this plays out into the rest of your life.
Yes, great reminder. And so when we talk about the inside out perspective, what do we mean? What do we mean by this? This is really a way of understanding how the mind works and how our thoughts create our reality and our experience in relationships. And basically what it is the understanding that our emotions, our human experience, whether we get triggered, whether we feel angry or sad or insulted, those come from nothing else other than our thoughts. Rather than pointing our finger at things in our outside world and saying, oh my gosh, my cousin said this to me and it made me so mad, or my mom criticized the way that I chopped the potatoes and now I feel, humiliated and inadequate. I think the tendency for a lot of us as we grow up in life is to blame our emotions and our experiences on the circumstances in our outside world.
We talk about this all the time, this inside out reality. And, it's one thing to talk about it, one thing to put words to it and point to this understanding of reality. And it's another thing to live and be in that understanding. So once again, just kind of depending on where you're at, in an invitation to deepen in this understanding, maybe beyond the words and beyond the concept. And, the good thing is that there are no requirements in terms of actions to take, no specific things that you need to do in any one relationship, but simply be in your life and be in relationship with yourself and others with this understanding that that person, regardless of what they say or do, or how critical or nasty they might be in an instant, is acting from their level of thinking, and that they're living in their separate reality, and that their separate reality doesn't have really anything to do with you and your internal, emotional, physical experience to their separate reality. It does get messy. It does get, we are humans, and it's okay to get emotional, but all the while having this background understanding of when the clouds pass, when the mud settles, when we're able to kind of think clearly, just having that remembrance of, hey, that person, that was kind of nasty what they said or did, but they were doing the best in that circumstance for themselves, and I don't need to take it personally. I don't need to be the victim. I can take responsibility for my quality of mind and mindset in the moment, and maybe even use the anxiety or the tension or the upset or the irritation or the rage, whatever the emotional experience is, we can use that to kind of wake us up to the present moment. So that's how we like to navigate in our lives and in relationship, because life is just a big collection of relationships.
It's true. And what is so cool, that I find is so cool, is that when we really start taking responsibility for our experience and relationships, we really start seeing that, oh, okay, maybe it's not this other person. Maybe it's actually, maybe I feel the way I feel because of the quality of my thinking. We start to really deeply understand how the mind works. And as we start to really deepen our understanding as to how the mind works, we see how it's playing out in other people and their behaviors. And that can increase our compassion for other people when they are acting out from their low, insecure moods. So, for example, I'll just make up a scenario.
Why don't you give a real world scenario rather than make up a scenario so that people can actually...
Well, how about you do? Because it's harder for me because my family is really good at kind of minimizing the drama, for better or for worse.
Okay, I'll give the example of yesterday.
Okay, great.
Yesterday,
Oh yes, I know what
Susanna
you're
has
referring to.
Susanna has a quick memory, or a quick forgetting setting, which is totally fine. But yesterday, Susanna was making something in the kitchen with a new white sweater.
I love this sweater. It's so nice.
And she turned on the blender. And by the way, this was our morning mushroom drink. She had her white sweater on, was ready to rock the morning with her mushroom drink, turned on the blender. Sure enough, the Vitamix lid was not securely shut, and chocolate mushroom concoction flew all over the place, pretty much directly on her sweater. And she, Susanna lost her shit. And
For lack of a better term.
She lost it. And I saw what was going on. I really honestly did do my very best to understand that, Susanna was thinking all of these thoughts about what just happened and really, really gripped and wrapped up and totally in the midst of what we always call a thought storm. And I related with her with that understanding that she is living in this thought storm reality. I knew that it wasn't going to last more than, I don't know, it ended up lasting like an hour.
It was not an hour.
Well, however long it took you to go to the dry cleaner, like the emergency department in the dry cleaning. I didn't, and drop off her sweater and just have a breath. And I also observed that sometimes, and this is maybe something practical, sometimes the breath that we all get to, the breath that we all kind of can use as a reminder of, actually everything's okay, that breath sometimes, it can come anytime. It can come in the midst of the storm, in the midst of the trauma, the chaos, whatever's going on in the external physical world reality, it can come. But sometimes it also helps to totally change your environment, to look somewhere new, to get in the car and drive somewhere, to leave a space, maybe a space especially that is full of kind of an icky feeling. And, there's nothing wrong with leaving that. I used to think that, when there was an upset, when there was something wrong, it needed to be resolved in that moment. And if we didn't resolve that in that moment, then, things were left unresolved. And then we needed to go back in the past and process it and talk about it and figure out what happened and make sure it would never happen again. But we can go on and live our lives, wait for that clarity, that peace of mind, and reflect and remember that, hey, it's all good. So that's maybe, I don't know how applicable that is to, I think it is applicable to any relationship, because sometimes it is the blender blowing up, and sometimes it's your Uncle Peter blowing up. It's like the same thing. And the fact of the matter is the blender wasn't the cause of Susanna's upset. in that moment, it certainly seems like it. But Susanna, I'm sure, can tell you that it was her thinking about it. And that thinking doesn't have to last any more than a moment. Sometimes it lasts an hour or a day. I've had experiences of a week's worth of, we'll call it quote unquote negative thinking, but it always, invariably, 1,000,000,000% of the time, always shifts. And the more we hang on and try to correct it and manage it and shift it from our top down intellectual force, the more it sticks. What you resist persists, in other words. So sometimes looking in a different direction, living your life, and just trusting that a fresh thought, fresh insight, fresh breath is just around the corner.
Yes, and I would love to add my perspective to this whole story too, because so in this scenario, I was stuck in my thought storm. I was really having a lot of thoughts about how stupid I was for not putting the lid on, how stupid I was for putting a white sweater on when I was cooking and preparing food in the kitchen, and all sorts of, repetitive thoughts like that. And I was really acting out. I was storming around the house, cursing, trying to get this stuff out of my sweater and freaking out about it. And
there was nothing, as a partner in life, and as we're all in relationship, there was nothing that I could have done. And that's like relieving to know that there's nothing that I could have done, should have done to ease the pain, other than just be present in the best way that I could.
Yeah. And I really witnessed Ben just seeing me in my upset and knowing that my upset was coming from thought. And that's it.
And I'll be the first to tell you that I did, for a few moments, try to shake Susanna out of her thinking, because let's face it, we both have this understanding, and I wanted to hey, snap out of it.
Yeah.
And my strategy for doing that is actually not very effective at all. So my strategy has been to meet her energetically, and she's cussing and swearing and upset, and I just look at her and say, hey, chill, it's all okay, relax. And from my loving place of understanding, just trying to penetrate her thought storm. And it actually doesn't really, maybe it does help it, but no, it doesn't. There's nothing externally that can shift the environment for Susanna or for anyone.
Right. So you really saw that you weren't responsible for fixing my low mood or my behavior. You trusted that I was that I'm still always connected with innate wisdom. Even when I am caught up in a thought storm, it's going to resolve on its own. Like you said, our psychological immune system helps us clear these thought storms on their own. And so, in that situation, Ben could have been super triggered. He could have been like, gosh, I can't believe she's doing this again.
And maybe if it happens again tonight or tomorrow, maybe I will be triggered. Maybe it will. And I don't know.
But see, so that's the relationship piece. It's let's say, just another scenario. Let's say your sister-in-law comes in and says some comment that might be a little short or rude to you.
My sister-in-law?
No, I'm not saying you. I'm talking to the listener. Or it could be your brother-in-law, or it could be your aunt, or your uncle, or your grandma, or whoever. Let's say they come in and they're kind of short and blunt, and maybe what they say is perceived as rude. It's yeah, we could create a whole story about that with our thoughts. We could say, oh gosh, grandma's always been this way. She's always been so critical. Gosh, will she ever love me? Oh, I can't stand being around this family. Ah. You know, we could get into that.
And when we do, might I add, all we do is create the structure, the context, and feed into the spiritual principle that breeds more of what we don't want. We create and maintain the very environment relationally that we want to change when we judge and, once again, what we resist persists. And I think a lot of us do want things to shift, but we want it from the top down, micromanage, intellectual, ego driven shift, not from a soul understanding, unconditional loving and accepting place of allowing the inevitable shift to happen on its own.
Exactly. So when we really understand that, acting out, behaviorally, whether someone's rude or, however we perceive them, there's a lot at play there, but there's really not that much at play there because, either we can really see a person and their behavior for what it is, or we could make a big story about it. And really, as we deepen our understanding about how the mind works, it's so much easier for us to see that when people act out, when they misbehave, they're doing so because their level of thinking, their quality of thinking is low. Like, they're in a thought storm themselves and they don't realize it. And then, just this one more piece, then our hearts can open and see, feel the compassion. Like, okay, what she's doing over there, what he's doing over there has nothing to do about me or my worth or my value. They're just, doing their thing because innocently they are stuck in a thought storm.
Yeah. And I just want to add something real quick. We've used some language about like low mood or high mood. And I just want to remind you guys that there's no judgment or right or wrong when it comes to mood. And we should find some different words from low or high that imply more of like neutrality. Because the fact of the matter is that, a positive thought, quote unquote, or a negative thought, quote unquote, it's the same. It's the same stuff. It's the same formless energy. And when we judge it, we just, put a little bit of weight on it and make it kind of icky and sticky and then something that we don't want to happen. And I'm speaking from experience, like very much so. I've resisted low moods my whole entire life. And that level of resistance is not a good strategy for feeling more peace. That's the fact of the matter. So kind of wrapping up this conversation about increasing peace in challenging relationships, you guys get the point that it's all an inside job. There's no strategy or tactic about, be sure to meditate 15 minutes at least before you go to dinner with your family, or, be sure to write in your gratitude journal every night. Those kind of things are fine and dandy, but just a reminder that really where the rubber meets the road and where the richest opportunities lie is in the very present moment to moment to moment to moment. And I just want to invite you. I know for me, I can, looking in my crystal ball, I can see the challenges in my future. I can see them. They're inevitably around the corner. They're going to be there. There's nothing that we can do to totally resolve or dissolve our challenging relationships. We're not Buddha. We're not Jesus Christ. That's okay. But looking in my crystal ball and forecasting all of these challenges, I'm inviting myself to remember that in any moment I can totally shift, shut the circuit breaker, of the relationship, and be in a totally different space and energy with regard to my thoughts and my thinking and my mindset around that relationship. You can drop all of the baggage or stories or drama or whatever it is. Like, we can drop that in an instant and be fully present. And once again, there's nothing that you have to do. And chances are you're going to do that like many times throughout the holidays and beyond. It's a perpetual practice and process. It's not like, okay, I healed the relationship, it's all good from here. No, at least that hasn't been the case for me. And I would love to talk with someone who feels like this challenging relationship is automatically 100% fully peaceful right now. I don't think it really works that way. I think it's a moment-to-moment practice and remembrance of how we show up and how we have an understanding of our state of mind in relationship with ourself and that person.
And I'd like to end on the note that really, I think what helps me is seeing that all relationships are really just two pure divine souls, embodied in human form, of course, surrounded by lots of swirling thoughts about this and that and this and that and this. But if we take away the thoughts, if we take away the behaviors that those thoughts lead to, there's really just two divine souls, pure souls, that have everything they need, that are connected with that infinite source of wisdom. When we can remember this in relationship, it's so easy for us to really feel the compassion for the other person, to let them ride out whatever wave of whatever poor behavior we might be witnessing, and to just give them the space and to, give them the love and to feel more connected with them.
Yeah. And like we started this conversation with, take it easy on yourself as well. Remember that there will be infinite opportunities for you to practice showing up moment to moment in relationship with yourself and others. And the holiday time is a great opportunity it's like midterms or something. Not that you need to study or prepare or anything like that, but there's a lot on the table, a lot of opportunities that can be rich. So on that note, we send you off into the rest of your holiday week with a lot of peace and love. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week on another episode of Alter Your Health Live.
And remember, if you're not yet in our Facebook community, plant-based and stress-free, we welcome you to pop over and join us there so that we can continue this conversation every day of the week and you can really receive support between podcast episodes.
Totally. So that is www.facebook.com/groups/alterhealth. You'll find the group there. And also another invitation, we are accepting new one-on-one clients in our private practice, and we invite you to schedule a complimentary 15-minute exploratory call to see how we might be able to support you in achieving your holistic health and life goals. So feel free to reach out and schedule at www.alter.health. And that's it for this show. We look forward to seeing you same time, same place, live on in our Facebook group and on Instagram next week on Thursday. Peace and love.
Bye for now.